Welcome to Be Your Soul. I'm your host, Sky Bradshaw, and today we're stepping into a conversation around shame, how it can take hold beneath the surface, and how it can be transformed into something powerful. This episode, Transmuting Shame from Breakdown to Breakthrough, invites us to consider what it means to move out of silence, release what was never ours to carry, and reconnect with our truth. Today, I'm joined by Lori Flowers, whose journey reflects the courage that it takes to shift from shame and self-blame into empowerment, advocacy, and voice. But before we dive into the Unclouded Heart segment for spiritual messages of wisdom, let's invite ourselves to become present in this moment within our body, mind, and energy. Take a moment to invite yourself to take some deep and cleansing breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth, and in through your nose and out through your mouth. And as you breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth, invite your mind, body, and energy to relax, 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 relax. And as we move into this space of complete relaxation, we open up our energies to the ancestors, loved ones, and friends to come together today to heal and guide us and lift us to the highest version of ourselves in the light of the universe. So we may hear what we need to hear, know what we need to know, connect how we need to connect, and be what we need to be for our highest and best good, and the highest and best good of all involved, as we open up space to give and receive. Shame is something we will all likely encounter in our lifetime, at least once. It encourages silence, creates self-doubt, leads to isolation, and can quietly disrupt our relationships. It has a way of living in spaces we are not looking or are too afraid to look. And in those spaces, it begins to grow. Right now, throughout the world, so many are living in states of overwhelm and burnout. And when our energy is stretched beyond capacity, it can create the feeling of powerlessness, like we don't have space, clarity, or strength to respond in the way we would like to. In those moments, we often turn inward, not outward. But when we turn inward with a space of judgment, fear, and ego, that is exactly the space where shame thrives. It takes moments of exhaustion or overwhelm and begins to attach meaning to them, inviting us to believe that we are the problem, rather than recognizing that we are responding to something that has asked more of us than we can give. It invites us to take what we perceive as missteps or mistakes and amplify them, multiplying them into something heavier, something that impacts our mental health, shapes our coping mechanisms, and internalizes blame. It shifts from being something about an experience into something that feels like an identity. As Brene Brown shares, shame says, I am bad, while guilt says, I did something bad. And that distinction matters, because when shame takes hold, it doesn't just reflect an action. It reshapes how we see ourselves. It convinces us to hide, to carry responsibility that may not be ours, and to believe that we should have known better, done better, or been different, even in moments where we had no control or were powerless. And this is where shame deepens. When we attach our identity to the experience, we begin to create stories. I thought I was strong, but this means I'm not. I should have known better. So this is my fault. I need to keep this to myself. If people knew this about me, they would see me differently. I have to protect that image. And in that hiding, in that darkness, in the aloneness, shame finds fertile ground. It grows in silence. It strengthens in isolation. But the difference between shame becoming something that freezes us and something that transforms us is our willingness to look at it. In energy, there's a spiritual property 1 + 1 = 3. When we bring something into awareness and add intention, something new is created. And the same is true with shame. When we shine a light on it, when we meet it with compassion instead of judgment, we create the possibility for transformation. Maya Angelou reminds us, do the best you can until you know better. And then when you know better, do better. And that perspective allows us to shift out of shame and into growth. One of my favorite practices to use and to offer to others in this space is the Buddhist understanding of skillful and unskillful. It gently invites us out of judgment, away from labeling ourselves as good or bad, right or wrong, and into curiosity. It says, today I may have been unskillful, but with reflection, tomorrow I can be more skillful. And in that shift, we loosen shame's hold on our identity and allow it to transform into something that supports our growth. Because you are not your experience. You are not your hardest moment. You are not the story shame is trying to tell you. And when we begin to separate our identity from what we've been through, when we seek support, when we practice self-compassion, shame no longer has the space to exist in the same way. It loses its power. So give yourself permission to bring light to what has been hidden. Give yourself permission to release what was never yours to carry anyway. Give yourself permission to love both your shadow and your light. Because every human makes mistakes. Every human has moments of unknowing. And often, what we carry as shame was never truly ours to begin with. It can come from experiences where we were hurt, misled, or placed in situations beyond our control, or from the ways we reacted in moments where we were overwhelmed, under-resourced, or simply human. Shame has a way of attaching itself not just to what happened, but to who we believe we are because of it. And when we look with clarity, we begin to see that our choices and reactions were likely rooted in survival, in learning, in being human. And in that awareness, we create space to release what was never ours to carry and to meet ourselves with greater compassion, understanding, and truth. And from this place, something begins to soften, not because the past has changed, but because your relationship to it has. You begin to see yourself with more clarity, more compassion, with more truth. The weight of shame no longer has a place to live in you because you are no longer feeding it with silence, judgment, or fear. Instead, you're meeting yourself with understanding. You're allowing what once felt heavy to become something that informs you rather than defines you. And in that shift, you create space to breathe, space to grow, space to be fully human without carrying what was never yours to hold. And it is in that space that empowerment returns, not as something that you have to force, but as something that naturally rises when you release the layers that were covering it. You begin to trust yourself again. You begin to stand in your truth without needing to hide or protect an image. You begin to move forward with a deeper sense of self, one that honors both your shadow and your light. And in doing so, you give yourself permission to live more freely, more honestly, and more fully as your authentic self.
The Be Your Soul Substack, created by Sky Bradshaw, is a space where the conversations from the podcast continue through thoughtful writings, spiritual insights, and soul-centered reflections. Many of the posts and offerings are freely available, so you can explore, read, and stay connected at your own pace. For those who wish to go deeper, paid subscribers receive early access to podcast episodes 2 days before release, unedited interview videos, and access to master-level classroom materials that expand on the teachings shared through the show. If the podcast supports you and you'd like to follow the ongoing reflections or help sustain the work behind it, this is a beautiful place to connect. Visit skybradshaw.substack.com to explore and subscribe.
Today, I'm joined by Lori Flowers, who was living her life as a vibrant, accomplished sales professional and devoted mother when she experienced something many believe could never happen to them: a sophisticated pig butchering scam. Rather than allowing shame to define her, she transformed that experience into a source of strength, voice, and purpose. Her story speaks to the courage of honesty, turning a deeply challenging moment into a space where she could free herself from shame while helping others to do the same. Today, she's an advocate working with Congress to support legislation and awareness efforts that protect and empower others. I'm grateful to have her with us as we explore what it means to transmute shame, stand in your power, and turn difficult experiences into opportunities for healing and meaningful change. Thank you so much for being here. I am so grateful to have you on the show, especially for such a delicate topic, because sometimes when we talk about shame, it can feel like we want to go hide in a corner and we don't want to face it. And we know, like gremlins in the night, that's what shame loves, is to be kept in secret, behind closed doors, not sharing with others. And it creates such a energy of self-doubt and isolation in our world. And so how, in your experiences, and we haven't gotten into your story yet, so you can feel free to tell your story of like what got you there and what you worked through in order to get to those spaces. But how do you perceive shame as a part of that story? And can you just kind of give people the run through of, where you were in your life, what transpired, and then how shame had a part in that and how you overcame it?
Shame can't survive once it's spoken. Like, that's what it's afraid of. What happened to me, and I guess how I found my way on your podcast, is I really honestly was living what I thought was a blissful life. Everything was going great. I think that's probably part of, it's definitely part of how I didn't even know what was happening while it was happening, is that I just was not in the headspace where I was open to anything negative or bad or wrong touching me. Like I said, it was in a great part of my life. My kids were either in college or on the way. Everybody was happy. Work was great. My personal life was great. And I got a random message, an email or a random in-mail on LinkedIn, of all things, from a stranger asking me sort of some innocuous, low consequential questions about the area that I lived in, because he was planning to move to the area. I ignored the message at first just because it was odd and didn't really have a bunch of time to answer. It wasn't really relevant. Again, LinkedIn is a professional networking site. And about a week later, the same person reached out and apologized for the intrusion, gave a little bit more color for the question. And I thought, well, gosh, it sure doesn't hurt to send a link to Chamber of Commerce and sort of give some of the information the person was seeking. that led to, a message back. Oh, thank you so much. That's so kind. Not everybody's willing to do this. I know the information I'm asking of you could have, been ascertained through a Google search, but I found that I've moved around the world as I've reached out to, actual people. It's just helped given me a better perspective. And I don't know, I guess that's just the lead up to think, I wasn't on a dating site. I didn't feel lonely. I wasn't, searching for anything in my life. At this point, I thought, well, isn't this nice to me? I'm helping a stranger. And, I just kind of flowing with everything that's good. And, plot twist. Now I'm on your podcast 4 years out as a survivor of a highly technical, organized crime, pig butchering romance scam. Which, if that sounds like I could be my own Netflix episode, it's actually because I could be. Those messages turned into a 6-month psychological grooming and manipulation to where I lost nearly all of this money I had saved. Most of that was retirement funds. And I guess in the shock and awe, I realized I had been scammed, that I had literally been robbed. It immediately teleported me and dropped me into shame. I don't even know if I could have told you before this happened that I knew what that felt like, because I live a pretty unabashed life. I'm proud of myself. I'm happy. I feel like I operate within, ethical boundaries. I don't know. I feel like I've always been a pretty authentic person, but I think the moment that this landed on me of what happened, like a cloak just came over me. I was humiliated. I was ashamed. I did not know what I was going to do. And I knew the one thing I was not going to do, which was tell a soul, because I was mortified. And that just was the invitation for shame to take over. And it actually did for about 2 years before I opened up and shared the story with anybody.
Yeah. And then after that aspect of just, isolation and it quietly taking root and shaping how you see yourself, the challenge is it also reshapes our relationships and how we connect with other people and what that looks like. So was there a pivotal moment for you where you were like, not anymore? I cannot live like this. I can't this if I continue to stay in this darkness, then I'm going to be consumed by it and I need to take this into the light.
I can't say that there was a moment. It wasn't like a switch was flipped. I think it was more of being able to look and say, wow, I'm losing myself. Like, I have withdrawn from friends and family. I've gotten really good at making up excuses why I don't feel like going out, or I didn't want to talk about certain things. And honestly, I felt like a stranger, in my own life. I ended up going through a support group for fraud victims. It's the first time that I told a soul that anything had happened. I had not told my closest friends, which is so bizarre because my closest friends know every single thing about me, right? Like they literally know, hey, I'm struggling over what I should have for breakfast. What do you think I should have? And so it felt like I was a big phony. And if I had told you what's your best characteristic, or what's your most admirable trait, I would have said, I'm authentic. I keep it real. I tell it like it is. What you see is what you get. And I guess through the support group, I realized nobody is getting punished in this but me. And I have got to tell someone, and as I had considered talking about it, I thought, for what? I'll never get my money back. The money is stolen. It is gone. And I guess the story I was telling myself is, if I bring it to light, if I bring energy to it and I keep talking about it, it's just going to keep it on top of mind. So I should keep it under wraps, because nobody could do anything anyway. Like, literally, what could help? $1 million, and it's almost the exact number, right? that I needed to help me. And I guess I realized through the help of the support group and by talking with people who not only had been experiencing shame, but experienced shame as a result of scams and fraud, that A, I was not alone, and B, it was actually very freeing to be able to talk about it. It was healing to talk about it. And it really had kind of been a disservice to the people who loved me not to share, which is exactly the reaction when I started to tell people that, I mean, my gosh, they were more emotional than me. Like, I cannot believe you kept this for this long. Like, you should have told me. And I don't know, I guess I just had sort of I don't know, an opinion of myself, like, no, I can do it alone. I'm fiercely independent. But man, that was just a recipe to feel worse and worse. And so, again, maybe not a moment, maybe not like a light bulb moment, but a slow realization with each person that I kind of opened up to, that the burden really was divided.
Yes.
And realized that, I don't know, that's, like I said, all I needed to do was speak about it, and then it couldn't own me anymore.
Exactly.
And that's what happened. Yeah.
And then you took it into an even more powerful level, because when not only we bring it into the light, but then, I do believe, knowing you for as long as I've known you, that you're a fierce force on this planet. It's like, I know that. And it felt really logical to me. Like, your next step was like, not only am I going to work through what I need to work through with myself, but now that I've done that, it's time for me to take that and move it into an even bigger space and a bigger voice, and take that fierceness out into the world. And so, what did working in the way that you're working, like speaking it not just to your friends, but now you're speaking it to Congress, and you're speaking it on not only this show, but bigger places than this, how did that allow you to not only understand yourself and the shame, but realize, like, that's what people need, encouragement to come out of the darkness?
Well, first of all, thank you. That's a great compliment. A fierce force. And I think it's super important. No, I love that you say that, because I would have thought of myself that way pre-scam. Then there's kind of during and post scam where I didn't know who I was. I think that's the biggest, or one of the biggest mind tricks of all, is that all of my judgment is being questioned. Never mind, like, how did this happen and all of that, but just in general, like, can I even be trusted? And I think, peeling that shame away. It's funny. Somebody I used to know said to me one time, and at the time it really hurt my feelings, but it's kind of been a driving force now. They said to me, "You're not the main character of every story." And I really kind of clutched my pearls at that, because I thought that was an accusation of being selfish. And what I realize now is, no, I'm not the main character of every story. This is about so many people besides me. And I have an incredible privilege. I don't know what it is, genetics, my constitution, something, like, I am a fierce force. And I need to talk about this. I need to tell this. Like, I am a victim of a crime, right? I am a victim of a crime. And when I settled in on that, and I just, instead of worrying about, oh my gosh, what will people think? Oh, I'll be so embarrassed. Will people judge me? Will they think I was gullible? Would they say, oh my God, how could she fall for that? I would never fall for that. Who cares, right? Like, anybody's going to have an opinion. Who cares is now, like you said, I have literally been on Capitol Hill 3 times. I have done briefings in front of the House of Representatives and Senate staffers. I've had individual meetings, 20 individual meetings with congressmen. I have been on keynote speaker at the stage of the Global Anti-Scam Association, which, thank you very much, I never even heard of until all this happened. But this has all happened, Sky, in the last 11 months. And the scam happened from January to June of 2022. So what happened? I don't know. I think once everybody kind of found out, I won't say everybody, but once I shared and I realized, wow, like, I'm advancing the cause. I am, giving a face, like, breaking a stereotype. I think sometimes we think scam victims might be elderly. They might be not formally educated. They might not be well traveled. And I think we tell ourselves these things a lot of times just to make sure that we kid ourselves into thinking we could never be a victim of a scam.
Mm-hmm.
And so to be able to kind of bust through that stereotype and use my voice, to be able to say, oh no, this happened to me and these are the consequences. If people don't speak about it, people don't know this scale of the problem. And so I feel incredibly powerful and fortunate to be able to talk about it. And honestly, right now it's like it's a steamhead train or whatever. I don't know what the term would be, but it feels like an unstoppable force. And it's getting a lot of traction. People are taking notice. I don't think this is how I wanted my 15 minutes of fame to look like. If I had mapped it out, maybe it wouldn't be via, being the victim of organized crime. But if that's the story, if that's this chapter, then that's this chapter. And so let's make the most of it. Let's take the pain and make it power. And yeah, now I actually feel like in a position of good fortune and not victimhood.
Yeah. And I think, on whatever scale that comes in, whether it's, standing in front of the House of Representatives and Congress, or it's just freeing it to your family so they can carry it with you. That's the key. The key is wherever that feeling of allowing yourself to rise beyond the shame is what's important.
I do think that is or was a decision. And it was a decision that I could not come up with on my own. I have to give all the credit to that support group because it's an unlikely group of folk. If you would have said, "Hey, what's your friend group like?" I wouldn't have imagined, just because these people are from everywhere, from every political persuasion, from every identity, but it's this really crazy trauma bond I think that we have. And there's an accountability in that meeting every week to say, "Hey, did you tell this person yet? What's the worst that can happen?" They kind of role played with me, and have to give the credit to that group to start. And in fact, just on another side note, probably something I'm as proud of as the advocacy work I've done, with the government and these big agencies, as I've started now to be a facilitator of those support groups. So it's really a remarkable, I don't know, it's like when you stop and reflect, like, holy cow, like, is this my life? It's probably the biggest privilege of all, and a way to take that shame off, just to take it off and hang it up, and just really key back into, like you said, who I was before, which was a fierce force. I totally love it. I'm getting a t-shirt. I get a t-shirt.
Yes. I love that.
Yeah.
So is there anything else you think that people should know about transmuting shame? Is there anything else that you think needs to be spoken?
I just think, maybe what I said at the beginning and what you said, shame drives you inward. Shame causes you to hide. And, I don't know who told me this, but someone said, some old Southern person told me before, if it doesn't come out in the wash, it will come out in the rinse. And so all those, sayings are really true. Like, you can press it down, you can press it down, and you can press it down, but it's going to come out. And whether that comes out with your physical health, your emotional health, damage to your relationships. And I think, I guess one other important point I would say about sort of getting the courage to speak out, or getting the motivation to speak out, is that, I don't know, I think it's called a spotlight bias, that we tend to think that, people care about what we say, how we look, with our arms out in a tank top, what we look like at the beach. And we're all in this fear of being judged. And honestly, most of us are too worried about ourselves to be worried about you. And so I think realizing that in terms of coming forward, you might get a rise out of somebody for a minute. You might have some random troll in the comments. Somebody's always going to have something to say. And I would say, don't let that. You can be controlled. Shame will have you more concerned with opinions of others, but really you need to have a strong opinion of yourself.
Absolutely.
You need to feel good on the inside. And that's an inside job. Like, that's not going to come from the outer validation, right? So I don't know if that makes sense, but I would say, you and you alone have the ability to sort of take that shame coat off and hang it up.
Absolutely. I like to remind people, if you wouldn't take their advice, don't take their criticism.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah. And it's so crazy because, again, I just wouldn't have thought I was a person that cared too much about all of that external influence. But once this happened to me, I wasn't even me anymore. I just all of a sudden I doubted every move. And it just, you get through it. You generally don't get through these things alone. And I think that's another good reminder, whether your circle is, a couple trusted friends or a family member, or now this online support group and Congress, I don't know, but, whatever that looks like. But I would say that somehow you've got to have an outlet. You've got to have somebody to sort of lift you up when you're feeling scared about this.
Yeah. And it is a gift to others, just like we would hold that space. I think sometimes we, especially in shame, because the formula for grooming is to isolate you and to make you doubt yourself and to become dependent on something that is unhealthy, whether it's this type of, scam stealing, or if it's abusive relationship, or whatever the thing is. Like, shame that holds people into those spaces is a formula, and all we have to do is pull one of the plugs out. So when we give the gift to someone we trust to let them help hold that, we would do it for others. But oftentimes we're like, well, I can't do that, but we are normally people who would want our friends to share with us. So we have to kind of use that empathy as well.
100%. But shame, again, it just takes you out of it takes you out of yourself, right? So it's like, of course, if I would have been horrified to think one of my friends was going through this and they did not tell me, I'd just been like, what do you mean? And so but I didn't see it that way when it was me.
Yeah.
Right. And so, yeah, everything that you're saying is true. And, it's the devil, man. I'm telling you, it's a crazy, crazy emotion, or it's a crazy, crazy state of mind. And, now when I tell the story, I almost feel like I'm telling somebody else's, because I feel so, thank goodness, so far removed from that feeling.
Yeah. So I ask every guest 3 questions. And the first one is, what do you think it means to be your soul?
I think being your soul is being who you are when all of your titles are stripped away, right? When you're not whatever executive on your business card, or you're not somebody's mom, or you're not somebody's daughter. It's like, when nobody's around, like what's kind of like what makes you you. It's what you feel like after, a few inhales and a few good long exhales. Like, okay, who am I? And that's taken from you when you're in the middle of this kind of shame driven life. So for sure, it's your essence, right? It's like when everything is stripped away.
Absolutely. So what's one self-care practice you do every day to refuel your energy, or often?
Yeah, it's actually kind of new. I feel like I have a bunch of little tools in the toolkit. They don't always get used, but one that I have been doing, I don't know, almost for a year now, is saying the affirmations, or saying the positive things literally out loud. It's kind of funny because I live at home. I have an empty nest. It's not like look in the mirror, but I say out loud, like, Lori, you are going to be fine. Lori, you are undefeated. Every other crisis that you have faced, you have solved. And this will be no different. And so to say that out loud, I don't know. It just seems like that's a super powerful thing to be able to do. And it's working. Feels good.
I love that. So what does centered and balanced feel like to you?
Yeah, I guess feeling balanced is sort of a variable thing. I don't think it's always like every day you wake up in equilibrium. It's to know that sometimes, just understanding the belief that after chaos will be rest, right? After all the excitement, there will be a pause. That I just understand that every storm runs out of rain, right? Like eventually everything is going to be settled. And that gives me the peace to know that I'm balanced even on the days that I feel a little tilted.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. I'm so grateful to have connected with you over this. And I know the subject is a really big subject, but I think putting a very human, very amazing, very connective face to it allows for other people to examine within themselves where they may be holding shame and give them permission to free themselves.
Well, I was flattered for the invitation. I hope that, we got to the point that you wanted to make. And I really love the chance to talk about it without all the nitty gritty details. So I hope I met your objectives, and it felt super good. My answer to you was always yes. Whatever you would ask me to do is always going to be a yes. So just keep that in the back of your mind. No, I love you.
Love that. I
No,
love
I
you
love
so
you.
much.
And you just, every time I talk to you, I feel better. I just always feel better. So thanks.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, dear listeners, for being here, for choosing presence, for listening with openness, and for allowing this conversation to meet you wherever you are on your path. We know you have many places you could spend your time, and we are truly grateful you chose to share this moment with us. A heartfelt thank you to Lori Flowers for sharing your honesty, strength, and lived experience. Your willingness to move through shame, reclaim your voice, and transform something deeply personal into advocacy and empowerment is a powerful reminder that what we carry does not have to define us. Your story invites us to see that even in our most difficult moments, there's an opportunity to shift, to grow, and to step more fully into our truth.
Ready to explore what it truly means to work with your mind, body, and energy together as an integrated system? The Be Your Soul Classroom, created by Sky Bradshaw, is an online learning space designed to support self-awareness, spiritual growth, and embodied understanding through practical, soul-centered teachings. Inside the classroom, you'll find a growing collection of online courses and offerings that explore energy awareness, intuition, personal alignment, and conscious living, each designed to meet you exactly where you are. Courses blend written lessons, video teachings, guided meditations, reflective exercises, and experiential practices, allowing you to learn in a way that feels grounded, accessible, and alive. Whether you're deepening your relationship with energy, strengthening intuition, or learning how to apply spiritual awareness to everyday life, the Be Your Soul Classroom offers both structure and spaciousness for your journey. Many courses are available on demand, so you can move at your own pace, while select offerings also include live Zoom sessions for those who enjoy learning in community and real-time connection. This is a space to return to yourself again and again with clarity, intention, and care. Visit beyoursoul.org to explore the Be Your Soul Classroom and discover the courses that support your next season of growth.
This is a practice I've found deeply helpful in my work, and hopefully you will too. I call it being your own best friend. Self-compassion is one of the most powerful ways to begin to soften shame. Where shame creates judgment, self-compassion creates understanding. Where shame invites us to turn against ourselves, self-compassion invites us to turn towards ourselves with care, patience, and love. And in that shift, something begins to open. This practice is meant to gently guide you out of the internal narrative that says something is wrong with you and into a space where you can meet yourself with truth, grace, and a deeper level of awareness. It allows you to see your experience not as something that defines you, but as something you can hold, learn from, grow through, and ultimately release with the same care you would offer someone you love. So grab your trusty journal, and as we move into this, I want you to remember you are not here to judge yourself. You're here to be with yourself, to support yourself, to be your own best friend in this moment. Start by bringing to mind a moment where shame has shown up for you. Something that feels a little heavy, something you may have carried quietly or kept to yourself. As you do this, approach it gently, with wisdom and an open heart. Recognize that you may have been holding this in silence for some time, and allow yourself to meet it with loving kindness as you bring it forward. There's no rush here. You're creating a safe space for yourself. Begin by writing out what happened. just the experience itself, what took place, what you remember, what felt significant. Let yourself be honest here without editing or softening it. This is not about reliving. It is about allowing what has been held in the dark to be seen in the light. Giving yourself permission to just take it out of that quiet, hidden place and place it gently into awareness, just as you would hold something tender for a friend. Then take a soft moment to reflect on what the experience came to mean for you. What story may have formed around it? What did you begin to believe about yourself because of it? As these thoughts come forward, meet them with care. There's no need to fix them or push them away. Just allow them to be seen. This is where awareness begins to open, not through force, but through compassion. And now we shift into meeting yourself the way you would meet someone you love. Imagine that someone you love dearly came to you with this exact experience, someone you care for, someone you would never judge in this moment. See them clearly. Feel your heart open towards them. Notice the way you would hold them, with patience, with understanding, with a deep desire for them to feel safe and supported. What would you say to them? How would you speak to them? What truth would you gently remind them of? Write that down. Now, slowly and gently, begin to offer those same words to yourself, not as something you have to earn, but as something you are worthy of receiving. This is the practice of becoming your own best friend, of choosing to stand beside yourself instead of against yourself. Allow yourself to feel what it is like to be wrapped in the same love and that same understanding, that same presence. Let yourself receive it fully. Let it soften the edges of what you've been holding. From this place, take a breath and gently reflect on who you were in that moment and who you are now. Notice the space that exists between those two versions of you, the growth, the awareness, the understanding that has come with time. Gently ask yourself, what feels clearer to me now than it did then? What has opened or shifted within me since that moment? What new awarenesses do I carry today? And as you recognize that, allow the version of you that exists today, the one with more awareness, more compassion, more life lived, to support the version of you that was navigating that moment, to meet them with kindness, to offer them understanding, to hold them in a way they may not have been held at the time. From there, gently ask yourself, what would it feel like to no longer carry this from the past into this moment, and instead meet myself here with more care, more compassion, and more presence? Write down one small way you can act from that place, one gentle shift, one choice that reflects the version of you that is learning to support themselves, to care for themselves, and to move forward with greater kindness. And as you sit with this, begin to tune into what it feels like to become your own source of loving energy, not to wait for permission, validation, or understanding from the outside, but to offer it to yourself fully and freely. Because this is where shame begins to loosen its hold. This is where you reconnect with your truth. And this is where transformation begins, not by pushing anything away, but by choosing to stand with yourself again and again. Take a breath. honor yourself for showing up to this work. And know that every time you choose understanding over judgment, you are strengthening your ability to be there for yourself. And that is where true healing begins. Before we close, I want to gently acknowledge that exploring shame can sometimes connect to deeper experiences, including trauma. This conversation and practice are meant to support reflection, but they are not meant as a replacement for mental health care. If anything that came up feels overwhelming or unsettling, please know you don't have to move through that alone. Reaching out to a trusted mental health professional or a support system can be a meaningful and supportive next step as you continue this work with care. May you be well. May you feel whole. May you be blessed. May you find peace. And may you always be your soul.
Want to connect deeper with Sky and the work she offers? You can explore more at beyoursoul.org, where all of our offerings, reflections, classroom, and episodes are here to support you. Everything we create is rooted in one mission. When the one is strengthened, the sum is strengthened.